So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first session this afternoon, Growing Fast, Making Customers Happier, which will explore challenges and solutions around keeping your customers happy while scaling at speed. Our panelists will be sharing their experience in building world-class customer success teams, what to measure and how to lean into data, and how to increase customer value during hypergrowth. Facilitating the discussion is Itimi, Head of Growth at Hubspot. Peace is a growth marketing professional and YouTuber who's passionate about improving the lives of people and growing businesses using her knowledge and skill. Currently, she's Head of Growth for Stacks, Africa's offline payments super app, and a Head of Product for Seattle-based firm Hubspot Developer Services. Peace is also a growth mentor at SeedStars, a public speaker, and a Mandela Washington Fellow. So what a fantastic moderator to kick our afternoon off. Please, over to you to introduce our speakers and get our first panel of the afternoon underway.
For a second, I was like, oh, is it me they're introducing right there? Thank you so much. Everybody watching, thank you and welcome to another episode of Startup to IPO. This session is titled Growing Fast, Making Your Customers Happier. I'm just going to be your moderator and I'm going to ask questions. The two panelists for this session, we have Katie Christian, the Head of Customer Success at Calendly. Hi, Katie.
Hey there, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to hearing you talk and just learning from you today. And we have Jonathan Corbin. He's the Global Vice President of Customer Success at Hubspot. Hi, Jonathan.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, how are you guys doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day outside. I'm excited to be here with all of you.
Awesome. Okay, so you know what, Katie, I'm going to go right in and start with you. Could you tell us what the things you need to know when you're building the first customer success team for a company? So if I'm starting from scratch, say I'm head of growth at a company and we just start thinking about building our customer success team, no support, what do we need to know when we're building from scratch?
I think the biggest thing that you need to know when you're building from scratch is what do your customers need? Right? And develop everything around that. And so if you're the leader on the ground, connect with any frontline teams that you might have, or if you're truly the first hire, do as many customer interviews as you can and figure out what those pain points are so that you can start to build scalable ways to address them.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Jonathan, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think the same thing holds true whether you're starting from scratch or if you're establish what exactly your CES team is supposed to do. I think there's a couple of fundamental things when we think about what are the foundations of a CES team. For me, that comes to mind. I think that there's simply that role definition, understanding what the objectives are that you want the team to accomplish, and what are the metrics that you want them to be responsible for. And so when I think of kind of the basics of team building, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And how would you describe an effective customer success manager? So if I'm going to build a CS organization from scratch and I'm thinking about the customers and what I want to achieve and the metrics, who do I even need to be and how do I need to think as a customer success manager? Jonathan?
Yeah, happy to take that one. I think it depends on the organization. I've been fortunate enough to be at a few different companies and started pretty early on in the whole customer success journey. I was at an Adobe company where we were in the middle of a transition from going from box software, on-premise software to software as a service. And we really had an opportunity to create and evolve in this time what the CS role was. That was a great part of my journey. And so, as we started off, we said, maybe they're kind of like account managers. Maybe, they're, a services team that sits there and they help their customers. Maybe, they help them with support tickets. And so, we actually went through an evolution there where we learned from our customers and we learned from our business exactly what should our CS team be. And as our product suite continued to expand, what we found is that we actually needed someone who is going to be a generalist across the entire product suite. They need to have business knowledge of the product. They need to be able to understand what the customer's business was, and they need to be able to help them to close the gap between the two. How do you derive value from the products you purchase, and how do you deliver that to your customers? And so when you think about who your customers are and who their customers are, they kind of overlap. So, for us, our customers might be a marketing department, but their customers are the sales department. So understanding what their goals are and helping them to deliver those, in this example, through Hubspot.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, Jonathan, I love that you brought up not just who our customers are, but who their customers are, right? Because ultimately, they're coming to us to better their customers' experience at the end of the day with HubSpot and with Calendly. And so by making our strategy, our roles, whatever it is that we're doing within our customer success function, not just about them, but about the impact they're bringing to their customers, it resonates a lot deeper. You typically have a higher adoption, high success rate, because they ultimately know that you are aligned on not only their success, but their customer success. And I think key customer success teams that lock that down early really hit the ground running a lot faster.
I think it's actually interesting. This goes back to kind of the startup phase of understanding your product market fit, and actually looking across the entire customer journey, starting off with when they hear about your product, all the way through to the delivery and the usage of the product, and saying what exactly are the use cases our customers have, and how do we help them to deliver on those. And so, I think that's a really great point, Katie. Understanding that entire customer experience journey that you want to deliver as a company is essential to making sure that you're getting CS right.
Amazing. So, if I hear you both correctly, you're saying that customer success manager has to be a generalist, have really good knowledge of the business, but then also have really good knowledge of the customers and the customer. You have to think about how to not just meet the needs of your own users, but go for that to say, how can I help my users also meet the needs of their user? Is that correct?
I think it actually is going to vary depending on what stage your company is in. So, for example, at Calendly, you may have a smaller product suite, and so you can afford to be able to go very deep in terms of the product, how it relates to your customer's tech stack, how it interacts with it, how they can get more use of it. For us at HubSpot, we have a few more products, and so we want to make sure that we're actually creating a role that's going to be able to expand to encompass all the business knowledge that they need to retain and to be able to engage with as they go through their journey. So I think there's you can go deep or you can go wide, and it kind of depends on where you are as a company from a product side.
100% aligned with that. There's no right or wrong. I think it just depends on the needs of your customer base, where the business is at, and sometimes the stage early on. Sometimes you can't afford to specialize, so you might have to have those generalists. So it's just something to think about.
Amazing.
You have options, I think, is key.
Oh, awesome. So have options. Adapt your customer success strategy to the stage where your business actually is, right? And that brings me to the next question. What happens when you are working in a very hyper growth company? So you both work at Calendly and Hubspot. They're very, really advanced companies already. So what if, for instance, I just got into a startup and we're just 3 months out of beta, and we're just thinking about building a customer service strategy, and then 6 months down the line we're having so many users. Obviously, we're not going to be as prepared for that hyper growth in terms of CS as we were 3 months down the line. So if I get to that point in my company where we're growing really, really fast, what are the things that I have to put into consideration in building support and customer success?
So I'm going to echo what Jonathan said earlier. It's all about the role clarity. So it's what are these respective functions responsible for? Because all too often support, customer success get fallen or placed into the Jackson James of all trades, and they do everything post-sale. And so having that clarity as your business starts to scale and go into hypergrowth is what is customer success responsible for? How does it differ than customer support? And creating a delineation between those roles, I think it's very important. Something I didn't do in my very first startup. I taught it a little bit later, and now every time I go in, we do have that clarity very early on.
Do you want to share with us what's the difference between customer support and customer success, just for our audience sake?
Yeah, so for me, my perception of that is support is reactive to where customers are coming to you with questions about your product, break fix, technical things of that nature. And then the customer success portion is you proactively engage with customers directly one-to-one at scale with emails, webinars, and things of that nature to guide them on their journey, trying to get ahead of what potentially those blockers could be for them before they go into support.
Amazing.
Really focusing on their long-term health.
Awesome. Thank you. Jonathan, do you want to add anything to my question? Just building customer success for hyper good companies?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, like, Katie hit the nail, and if you earlier, I started a company 2 years ago, and if we started off from the two founders, and then we continued to grow. And so, understanding that you may have to start small and scrappy, where, there is some application around what you're responsible for, but creating a roadmap saying, okay, well, at the point of growth as a company, we're going to start putting out these roles. And what Katie was saying is having really defined metrics for each of those roles, the clarity around the role and responsibility is really critical, because what's going to happen as you continue to grow, if you don't define the metrics for success, you don't define those roles, what you're going to have is you're going to have teams going back and forth saying, hey, this person's not doing that job, that person's not doing this. And it's really confusing, because as you start to think about what your onboarding path is for the employees you're bringing in, you can't be specific in terms of training them on the roles and responsibilities.
Amazing. So I've heard you both talk about knowing your customers, knowing the metrics that you want to track, and also knowing the roles that you have in your CS team, the difference between customer support and customer success, and everybody having a clear understanding of what their contributions are to the team. Would you want to talk about, Jonathan, a bit more about leaning into data? How do you use customer data on either the support or success parts of a CS team? And maybe give us one or two examples that you've come across in your experience.
Yeah, I think, we lean pretty heavily into using the information that we have around our customers in order to decide how we interact with them. So as you continue to scale and you continue to grow, as much as you'd like to be able to interact and talk to every single customer on a daily basis, what we've found through the customer data that we have is customers actually don't want that. And so, we spent some time understanding customer usage data, understanding feedback from customers, and understanding what is the way that they want us to engage with them. How can we best help them? What we found is there's three specific ways that they like us to engage with them. One, there's some customers who need a lot of help, and they want to be able to interact with their customer success manager. They want to be able to engage with them on a regular basis. There's a second tier of customer who said, I kind of know what I'm doing, and I'm really good at going through the forum, interacting with other people, finding information on my own, but I really love the option of being able to just say, hey, I want to make sure I'm going down the right path. And so occasionally engaging with you as a company. And then there's a third one who says, hey, you know what? I'm actually really great at finding my own answers. I understand the product. I don't really need to talk to anybody. And so we've used customer data to define our segmented approach to engaging with our customers. And by using the data we've collected from them, the aggregation of feedback that they've given us, and defining, how we can do a better job of engaging and tracking with them, where and when they want us to.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Katie, do you want to add something to that? Maybe also share from your experience.
Yeah, for sure. So I love that Jonathan talked about using data to optimize the experience. And then I think it's, now that you have those experiences, what's the data coming out of those? And how are you feeding that back to the business? And so as Jonathan talked about his three segments, we have something very similar at Calendly, where it's high touch all the way down to self-serve. But what are those customer needs? What are they doing inside of the product? And how, as customer success, I always say, one of our top jobs in the business is to give feedback to our business partners. So how are we relaying that to marketing? How are we relaying that to product? And so how are we taking both qualitative and quantitative data, pairing that together to drive our roadmaps further, to impact the experience overall? And so, taking it up front to impact the customers and create the right experience is key. Then how do we bring that internal data back to the business to drive meaningful enhancements, improvements, and in the areas of innovation for the business to stay ahead? And so that's how I love, the second part of data is just that continuous feedback loop. So we can constantly be providing, better experience, leveling up, and ensuring that our customers know that we're actively listening, but also taking action.
So data is important because it can help you segment your users and understand them better to be able to personalize the experience, but it can also help you as feedback loop so that you actually know the actions to take to actually then optimize the experience. That's really awesome. So, and this really leads very well to my next question. There are a lot of startups, especially when you're just starting, who go with the spam as a customer success engine strategy, one-to-many, and they just talk to everybody at the same time and the same tone. Do you want to add your thoughts to it, why it's wrong, and other best practices that you can use as against using the spam engine or one-to-many strategy for customer success? Anybody can.
I think HubSpot would be great to speak to that specifically. I've seen it done, and I think it's the desire to serve all and to serve the masses, but it's just simply not effective. And so with that, Jonathan, I know you've got a bunch up your sleeve that you'd love to share here. So I've said my 2 cents. I'll hand it over to you.
I certainly see good and bad examples of how one-to-many or a scale strategy can succeed or fail. And I think, first of all, you have to define, what exactly do we want from a scale program? It's not flooding customers' inbox invites and sales calls. It's not a barrage of emails on why you should upgrade your current subscription. It's not ignoring your smallest customers. But what it really is crafting a customer experience that your customers want. It's understanding that in order to deliver a great experience to your customers, you have to anticipate their needs. You have to make sure that you are understanding where they're going to get stuck and helping them get more value out of the products they purchase. I think that comes back to the conversation that we started on is what exactly do we expect from our CS team? It's about the delivery of value. And being able to do that at scale, it's really tough. It requires a lot of that data that we were talking about earlier, not just from a segmentation perspective, but that feedback loop, incorporating that into how you're engaging and interacting with your customers at a very micro level. And it might come down to on the Calendly side of if someone is getting stuck at a particular place, understanding that from the product analytics and engaging with them and helping them move past that. Yeah. So I think that go ahead, Katie.
I was just going to say, one of the most tactical things you can do is look at support data that comes in for new customers and figure out where in that journey are they starting to message in. What is the initial blocker that's creating the volume in support? Where do they get stuck? And work to fix that, right? And so it's a really great, because customers are quick to jump to support as soon as they have a problem, but also not only the support data, your knowledge base, help centers, whatever you have there, go to see where people are searching and level up that experience and customize it in that manner. Just as Jonathan was saying, there's so many different data points to look at, but it's anticipating their needs. And sometimes it can be hard when you're in that rat race and that hustle of early stage and everything's on fire, but taking a moment to focus on the data that you do have and say, our customers are getting blocked here and here. Okay, what can we do about that? There are probably a bunch of other places where they're getting blocked as well, but where does it start? And how do you slowly start to fix, or quickly start to fix one by one by one?
That's amazing. And that's a very, very powerful thing to say. And even for me to take back, at what point does our customers or our users begin to have problems, and how can we fix it little by little, one by one, until we get all the way to the end of the funnel, and maybe all your problems are fixed, and just optimizing the use of your knowledge base, right? You don't always have to get on a call or send a message. Can you provide resources for your customers or for your users so that they can even answer some of these problems themselves? Thank you so much for that, Kitty and Jonathan. So my next question is a personal question for both of you. In your experience as customer success managers and vice presidents and heads, what would you say has been the top 2 biggest lessons you've learned in your role? Kitty, maybe go first.
That's a big question. Top 2 lessons. I would say the first is really ultimately listening to the frontline reps and being as close to the customer as you can. So as you grow in your career and you progress through leadership, how are you going back and connecting with the folks on the front lines, with customers, and never falling out of those lines of communication? Because there's always something to be learned. My day-to-day is heavily involved in strategy. Yesterday, I was in a customer call and I learned about a new challenge, and I've been at Calendly for over 1.5 years. Right? So it was something new that popped up. So how are you staying close to the customer is one. And then the second, I think really aligning those internal business partners and having them understand that what customer success is fundamentally doing should help drive their business functions as well. And the partnership is so critical. And so for me, staying close to the customer and creating those really meaningful relationships internally to drive success for all would probably be the two biggest lessons that I continue to focus on and rally around.
These are great.
Yeah, put me on the spot, I won't lie.
This is one where I'm glad I'm going second, Katie. I think the two for me is first of all, this is your goal. And, for us at HubSpot, our goal is to help our customers grow better, to help millions of customers grow better. And I think, when you have hundreds of thousands of customers, it's really easy to lose sight of, for each customer, there is a story. It represents, a unique opportunity to make an impact on someone's business and how it impacts their life. And nothing really brought him back to me more than when we were going through some of the challenges that we had during COVID. And there are a number of things that we put in place to help our partners and our customers to stay afloat and to stay in business. And the stories that I heard from them of, wow, you've helped our business to stay alive. You've helped us continue to pay our employees. Because of you, we're able to have an amazing year because, we've been able to move past the challenges that we had initially and continue to engage with our customers. And so for me, it's like never lose sight of your goal. And the second is, lead with empathy. Your team is our people, the people that they're interacting with, the children that are running around in the background as we're all locked down at home. So continue to keep that in mind as you're going through your day to day. And it can be really easy to get lost and, hey, this is the strategy, this is the execution part, and stay focused on that. And that's certainly essential. But if you keep that in mind of like the goal, where do we want to go? How are we helping people? And then making sure that you're leading with empathy. Those are the two things that I've taken away from a quick look back at my career.
With empathy, how do you pick your team? How do you pick the right people to join your team?
Yeah, we've kind of gone through a couple of iterations in terms of what are the things that we screen for? And I think, what's really important is, we go back to like the initial part of this conversation, defining what the role is. But when you define what the role is, what it allows you to do is say, what are the skills required to do the role? And then after you'd understand what the skills that are required in order to do the role, what you have to decide is, what are the skills that I'm willing to train for versus the skills that you have to hire for? So for me, we took a quantitative and qualitative approach to the skills that we hire for. So, there's a couple of things that we look for in the people that we bring on board. The first one is stakeholder management, being able to engage with people in an effective manner. Now, the second is, we want our team members to be able to engage with amazing executives like Katie. And so we want to make sure that they're confident and they're effective communicators. And then, the third is about a customer first mentality. Our customer is the first person that we think of whenever we're making decisions at HubSpot, and we want to make sure that's instilled in the people that we hire. The fourth one is around agile learning, making sure that people are able to pick things up quickly. We iterate pretty rapidly from a product perspective, and we move quickly as a business. That allows us to grow quickly. And so we want to make sure that people are able to acquire that knowledge that becomes available. And then the last one is around ownership, driving results and initiatives, making sure that, we're making each of the people, the CSMs that we're hiring, they're the CSM of their business. They're the owner of that. They're the CEO. And so we want to make sure that that's something that they're comfortable with. So
Amazing.
those are the things that we look for.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Katie, do you want to add something else?
Yeah, what I think Jonathan covered a great bit. I think one of the biggest learnings that I've had throughout my career of hiring customer success managers is making sure that the CSM is ready for the stage of business that you're at. There's a very big difference to being a 7-person startup to a 500-person company to being a CSM of masses on a 1,000-person global team. Right? And there are different types of roles and skills needed in that. And so, you know, from early days, it sells off being 7 employees. We need someone who can operate and pick up and go and be really scrappy and things of that nature. As we're at Calendly now, we're very similar to what Jonathan just described. We want someone to be an owner of their book, to have focus and the ability to strive for excellence in their role with that ownership component. Communication skills, we're selling into the enterprise now. We're no longer selling just to you know, SMB markets or solo entrepreneurs, and so there's a different skill set. But handling the one key thing I would say in all of them is change management. How are our CSMs able to adapt to change regardless of the size of the business? Because if you look at last year with the pandemic, we all had to deal with change regardless of the size of the business. We all had to adapt in a variety of ways that we probably never thought we'd have to. And so for CSMs, one of the biggest things that I consistently look for, regardless of company size and maturity, is their ability to handle change management and for them to demonstrate that in the interview process.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We're going to be rounding up soon. So I have like 2 more questions. The first one is, if I'm building CS for a team and I'm just starting, say I work in a 15-man startup and we're just about to start building CS or building customer support, what tools or resources should I look forward to or should I look for?
So I may have an unpopular opinion here, but I always say if you're building CS from scratch, a customer success platform is not going to solve your needs. You need to truly, as Jonathan, I think, and I have really tried to drive home today, is create clarity. What is your function responsible for? How will you execute that? And how do you create, you know, a 96-month, 9-month plan to actually do that manually before you invest in tech? Because I think a lot of times what we find out in the first 6 months is what we thought would work doesn't work. And if we've spent a couple of months investing in building in a customer success platform and to realize our entire strategy needs to change, it's a lot of time wasted. And so I always say, hold off on the tech up front, define your strategy, implement it, get some clear 90-day goals, SMART goals in place, test them out. And then once you feel really good about that strategy, you can kind of do that at scale for a couple of quarters, then invest in the tech. I think that's a big misconception. People go straight to the tech, and the tech platform is not going to solve your problems. You have to have that strategy. You have to know your customers. It's really like half of the problem, right? It's not going to give you that resolution. Jonathan, curious to hear your opinion here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's really like that definition is where it starts. And then once you have that definition, you can say, what are the process and procedures that are required in order to execute on that? So like, what is the goals of the team? You know, what are the skills required in order to do it? What are the training required for the team to be able to execute on that? And then like, what are the process and procedures needed in order to execute on the vision and deliver that customer experience that you've designed? And then when you have that all like created, figured out, and you're like ready to go with that, and you've executed on it, you refined it, then put the tech in place, because the tech is a tool, right? It enables you to do the things that you want to do. If you don't know what you're going to do, it can become very ugly very quickly.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you so much to both of you. And now a final question. As a head of customer success, right, what is that one challenge to prepare for? Jonathan, maybe go first this time.
I wish there was just one challenge.
Right?
I think it's one of the things where, you know, it's kind of that the responsibility falls on your CXM team after the sale. Like, you are the face of Calendly, you are the face of Hubspot to that customer. And so, you know, the number of questions, the number of things that customers come to you with is really diverse. They can come to you and say, how do I use your product? But they can also come to you and they can say, what does best in class look like? What should I be doing? How do I form my team? What's happening in the industry? And so, one of the things that's really crucial for us is to make sure that we're getting the training for our CSM teams right. Like that onboarding experience, getting them ready to be able to face the sporadic of questions that are coming at them. And being able to be knowledgeable about them, being able to have an opinion and be informed that it doesn't stop after the onboarding, it continues after that, right? There's this flywheel of knowledge that continues to spin. Like you think you've figured out that first part of it and you're like, great, I'm off to the races, I'm ready to engage with customers. And then you get these questions from customers that completely trip you up. So, one of the things that I think has been really important for us is making sure that we're investing in ongoing learning, not just about bringing people in the door, but helping to enable them long-term for their success and our customers' success.
Yeah, enablement is key. And just as Jonathan said, it's not just the first 3 months of getting someone ramped and onboarded, it's continuous. So how do you do that? And also too, how are you bringing customers into the enablement? And so once a month, we bring customers in and truly allow them to just share about Calendly. We ask them questions and things of that nature. And we not only do that for CS, we do it for the whole business. And it's really powerful. So take those learnings and bring them to the masses if you can. Make it an optional event. But what we find is that the more we lean into learnings and invest in our team, the less caught off guard they are and the more confident they are in their roles, which makes them show up and makes them more proud. But I think the big thing to outline too is those curveballs are inevitable. We're always going to have them. And so we have to be okay when they pop up as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot from this session that I'm definitely going to go back to my team and say, hey, this is a lot of things that we need to do. From just leading with empathy to how to hire the right people that understand what customer success is, that understand how to adapt to change, that are agile, to going for the strategy and the problems before the tools first. I think that's a big one, because for most of the things I've worked with, when we think about customer support, the very first thing we think about, hey, what tool should we use for chat? What tool should we use for this? But now is, hey, hold off on the tech first and then go back and think about what the problem is, what the metrics are, how you're going to use data, on what strategies you're going to use to actually solve the user problem first. And at every point, think about the users first. How are we going to solve it for them? And maybe we'll solve for their own customers and for their own users. So thank you very much, Katie and Jonathan, for this. I will give you guys 30 seconds if you have any final words to say before I hand over back to Exu. Jonathan?
Yeah, I think the thing to keep in mind is that the customer success is a journey. It doesn't start and end, it's ongoing. And so keep that in mind. But really providing clarity to your team and to yourself of what success looks like is the key to succeeding in customer success.
Amazing. It's a journey. And Katie, you?
That absolutely resonates. It's a journey. We're adapting, we're changing, we're growing. Make it fun. If this is where we're investing our time and who we're spending with, make sure that we're really enjoying it, not only internally, but externally, and we're celebrating those wins. All too often we get caught up in the hustle of it all, but make sure that while we have clarity, strategy, and all of that, that we're celebrating, we're having some fun along the way.
Amazing. Customer success is a journey, and while you're going on the trip, make sure that you have as much fun as you can and enjoy yourself. Thank you so much, Katie and Jonathan, for having this conversation with me. I learned a lot, and I'm sure that everybody who was watching also learned so much. Esme, I'm handing over back to you now.